15. Nighttime signs. Your blood sugar is already too high. Are you missing them? Right now, while you sleep, your body may be silently signaling that your blood sugar is already too high. Not in the future, not if you develop diabetes. Right now, tonight, as your head hits the pillow. The thing is, most people are completely missing these signals. They chalk them up to stress, aging, a bad mattress, too much coffee, and in the meantime, the damage keeps building. Quietly, every single night. What I see in the ER every single day are patients who had no idea. They felt a bit tired, a bit off, maybe woke up a few times at night. Normal stuff, right? And then one day they land in front of me with a blood sugar reading that should not be compatible with someone who was just going about their normal life. Hi, I'm Dr. James Whitfield. I'm an emergency medicine physician, and in just over a decade of working in the ER, I've personally treated well over 40,000 patients. I've seen what uncontrolled blood sugar does to a human body up close, in real time, in ways that most people never get to see and never should. This channel exists for one reason: to stop you from ever ending up where my patients end up. Prevention has to come from you because by the time the ER gets involved, the window for easy intervention is long closed. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 15 nighttime signs that your blood sugar may already be too high. Some of these you'll recognize immediately, others will genuinely surprise you, and I promise you, by the end, I'm also going to give you a clear, practical framework for what to actually do about it, because most videos like this leave you with the fear and none of the action steps. Now, before we get into it, I want to ask you something. Only about a quarter of the people watching videos like this one have actually subscribed to the channel. If you find value in what I'm sharing, please, please, please hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, it helps this channel reach more people who genuinely need this information, and I promise to keep making the most useful, evidence-based content I possibly can. If you get to the end and feel like you didn't learn a single thing, unsubscribe, no hard feelings. But I don't think that's going to happen. Let's talk about what high blood sugar actually is in 30 seconds. Because everything else makes more sense with this foundation. Glucose, that's the sugar in your blood, is your body's primary fuel. Your pancreas releases a hormone called insulin to act like a key, unlocking your cells so glucose can get inside and be used for energy. When that system starts to break down, because the cells stop responding properly to insulin, that's called insulin resistance, glucose stays stuck in the bloodstream where it doesn't belong. And blood glucose sitting too high for too long is, in plain terms, toxic to your blood vessels, your nerves, your kidneys, your eyes, and your brain. The terrifying part is that this process can be silently underway for years before a blood test at a routine physical finally catches it. And a lot of the earliest signals, they happen at night. Here's why nighttime matters more than you might think. During the day, movement, meals, and activity create noise that masks symptoms. At night, when your body is still and your systems are running on a kind of maintenance mode, the signals get louder. Your body has fewer distractions. The symptoms become harder to ignore if you're paying attention. Let's go through all 15. Number 1. You wake up to use the bathroom more than once. This is probably the most well-known sign, but most people still don't connect it to blood sugar. Here's the mechanism. When glucose levels are too high, your kidneys work overtime trying to filter the excess out of your blood. They pull glucose into your urine, and glucose is osmotically active, meaning it pulls water along with it. The result is that you produce dramatically more urine than normal. There was a study published in Diabetes Care looking at over 12,000 adults, and frequent nighttime urination, what doctors call nocturia, was one of the most consistent early markers of elevated fasting glucose. If you're getting up twice or more every night and you're not drinking a liter of water before bed, that's worth paying attention to. Number 2, you wake up feeling genuinely thirsty. This follows directly from number 1. All that extra urination is pulling fluid out of your body. Your hypothalamus, the part of your brain that regulates thirst, detects the drop in fluid volume and sends out a strong thirst signal. The problem is that many people with chronically elevated blood sugar just assume they're someone who drinks a lot of water. What we know is that if you're consistently waking at night with a dry mouth or a strong craving for water, and this isn't explained by alcohol, salty food, or hot weather, your blood glucose is worth checking. Number 3. You wake up with a headache. This one surprises people. High overnight blood sugar causes osmotic stress. That's essentially a change in the water balance inside and around the cells of your brain. This can trigger what's called a hyperosmolar headache. The neurons in your brain are particularly sensitive to shifts in fluid balance, and when glucose is high, those shifts are real. Many patients describe waking up with a dull, pressing headache, particularly across the forehead. They assume it's tension, dehydration, or poor sleep. Sometimes it's all three. But chronically elevated blood sugar is on that list too. Number 4. Your legs feel restless or uncomfortable at night. Restless leg syndrome, that uncomfortable urge to move your legs when you lie still, has a well-documented association with blood sugar dysregulation. The mechanism involves peripheral neuropathy, that's early nerve damage, particularly in the small nerves of the lower limbs. A study published in the Journal of Diabetes Investigation found that adults with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes had significantly higher rates of restless leg symptoms than the general population. The nerves that supply your legs are among the first to be affected by consistently elevated glucose, because small nerve fibers are especially vulnerable to that osmotic and oxidative damage. Most people sit with restless legs for years before anyone checks their fasting glucose. Number 5. You feel burning or tingling in your feet at night. This is a more advanced version of what I just described. Once peripheral neuropathy progresses even slightly, many people experience what's called paresthesia, a tingling, burning, or pins and needles sensation, most often in the feet and lower legs. It tends to be worse at night, partly because there's no movement or distraction, and partly because lying flat changes circulation patterns. The feet are the furthest point from the heart, and the small blood vessels and nerves there are among the first casualties of chronically high blood sugar. What becomes really clear when you talk to patients is that this symptom had often been present for months or years before anyone thought to check their A1C, which is the 3-month average blood sugar test. Number 6. You wake up sweating. Night sweats have many causes, but one that rarely gets mentioned outside specialist circles is nocturnal hypoglycemia. That's blood sugar dropping too low during the night. Now you might be thinking, wait, this is a video about blood sugar being too high. Here's the nuance. People who have been running chronically elevated blood sugar often have reactive hypoglycemia, meaning their glucose spikes and then drops sharply, sometimes during sleep. When blood sugar falls too low overnight, the body releases adrenaline and cortisol as emergency hormones to drive it back up. Those hormones cause sweating, heart pounding, and waking. So night sweats can be a sign of blood sugar instability in both directions. Number 7. You feel exhausted in the morning despite a full night of sleep. This one is incredibly common and consistently underestimated. The mechanism has a few components. First, when blood sugar is elevated overnight, the quality of your sleep is measurably impaired. You spend less time in deep, restorative sleep stages. Second, your cells are literally starved of usable energy because glucose can't get inside them efficiently. Your body has plenty of fuel circulating in the blood, but the doors are locked. It's a bit like having a full tank of petrol but a broken fuel pump. You wake up feeling like you've barely slept. There was research published in Sleep Medicine showing that adults with poorly controlled blood sugar had significantly worse subjective and objective sleep quality compared to matched controls, even when total sleep time was similar. Number 8. You wake up with blurred vision. This is one that sends people to the optometrist rather than their primary care doctor, which is understandable because blurred vision sounds like an eye problem. But the lens of the eye, like the rest of your body, responds to changes in fluid balance caused by high blood sugar. When glucose is elevated, water is drawn in and out of the lens abnormally, temporarily changing its shape and therefore its focusing ability. Many people notice this more in the morning because blood sugar fluctuations during the night have caused shifts in the lens overnight. If your vision seems noticeably sharper an hour after you wake up and eat something, that dynamic change is worth flagging to your doctor. Number 9. You feel anxious or irritable when you wake up. Blood sugar dysregulation has a direct effect on mood and anxiety, and the mechanism is genuinely fascinating. When blood sugar is unstable overnight, as I described with the reactive hypoglycemia point, the adrenaline and cortisol surges that try to correct it leave you in a state of physiological stress when you wake. Your nervous system is already fired up before your day has even started. There is growing evidence, including a large meta-analysis in Diabetes and Metabolism, that insulin resistance is independently associated with anxiety symptoms, partly through its effects on cortisol regulation and partly through its effects on the brain's fuel supply. If you consistently wake up feeling anxious or on edge for no obvious reason, this is a possible piece of the puzzle. Number 10. You have frequent or unusually vivid nightmares. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and this is one most people have genuinely never heard. During periods of nocturnal hypoglycemia, when blood sugar drops overnight, the brain can enter a kind of low-fuel stress state. The brain is almost entirely dependent on glucose for energy, and when levels drop, neural activity becomes erratic. This can manifest as fragmented, intense, or frightening dreams. Some patients describe nightmares specifically during the early morning hours, which correlates with the time when overnight glucose tends to be most unstable. There isn't a huge body of research on this specifically, but what we know from the mechanistic evidence is that the brain under glucose stress does not dream normally. Number 11. You wake up with a dry or metallic taste in your mouth. We talked about dry mouth from dehydration, but there's a more specific sign worth separating out. A sweet or fruity or slightly metallic taste in the mouth, particularly on waking, can be a sign of elevated ketones. Ketones are produced when your body starts breaking down fat for fuel instead of glucose, which happens when cells can't access blood sugar properly. In a more advanced state, this becomes diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a genuine emergency I see in the ER, but in earlier, milder forms, a faint, unusual taste on waking can be an early signal. If it's happening to you consistently, please tell your primary care doctor. Number 12. You wake up with muscle cramps. High blood sugar causes frequent urination, which causes dehydration, which depletes electrolytes, particularly magnesium and potassium. Both of these minerals are essential for normal muscle function. When they're low, muscles become hyperexcitable and prone to cramping, especially at night when circulation slows and the body has had nothing to drink for hours. The calves and feet are the most common sites. Most people assume cramps are just a sign of needing more bananas. What becomes clear when you look at the full picture is that in someone with elevated blood sugar, it's a downstream consequence of a much larger metabolic problem. Number 13. You snore more, or your sleep apnea has gotten worse. The relationship between blood sugar and sleep apnea runs in both directions and both matter. Excess glucose promotes fat accumulation, including around the throat and neck, which worsens sleep apnea. But sleep apnea itself causes surges in cortisol and adrenaline that drive blood sugar higher, particularly in the early morning hours. This creates a vicious cycle. A study published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine involving over 8,000 adults found that untreated sleep apnea was a significant independent risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes. If someone in your life has commented that your snoring has noticeably worsened, that is not just a sleep quality issue. Number 14. You feel genuinely hungry shortly after a large evening meal. If you eat dinner, and by bedtime, 2 or 3 hours later, you feel a strong, almost urgent hunger again, that's a red flag for blood sugar instability. What's happening is your body released a large spike of insulin in response to the meal, If you're insulin resistant, the overcorrection can send your blood sugar crashing after the initial spike, leaving you genuinely hungry again, even though you ate plenty of calories. This cycle, spike then crash, is not normal. It's a strong signal that glucose management is already compromised. The hunger is real, it's just that eating more is the wrong solution. Number 15. You wake between 2 and 4 in the morning regularly without a clear reason. This is less well known, but the evidence is accumulating. A phenomenon called the dawn phenomenon occurs when the liver releases stored glucose into the bloodstream in the early morning hours, typically between 2 and 5 a.m., in preparation for waking up. The hormones that drive this, cortisol and growth hormone, also cause a natural blood sugar rise. In people with normal insulin sensitivity, this is handled smoothly. In people with insulin resistance or prediabetes, this natural surge can push blood sugar high enough to disrupt sleep, specifically causing wakings in that 2 to 4 a.m. window. Many patients describe this as just something that happens. What we know is that it often has a metabolic explanation. Now let me give you the practical framework, because this is where most videos drop the ball. Step 1. Track the signs for 2 weeks. Write down every time you experience any of the 15 things I described. Keep a simple note on your phone. You don't need a diagnosis to start observing. Step 2. Get a fasting blood glucose test and an A1C done. These are basic blood tests available through your primary care doctor. The A1C gives a 3-month average blood sugar level. You want fasting glucose below 100 milligrams per deciliter and an A1C below 5.7%. Between 5.7 and 6.4 is prediabetes territory. 6.5 and above is diagnostic for diabetes. Step 3. If you want more granular information before your doctor's appointment, a continuous glucose monitor or a basic finger prick glucose meter are both available over the counter now without a prescription. Checking your fasting glucose first thing in the morning before eating or drinking anything gives you a reliable daily data point. Do it for a week and write down the numbers. Step 4. Start with the 3 levers that move blood sugar the fastest without any medication. First, a 10-minute walk after your largest meal of the day. Not an hour at the gym, 10 minutes. There was a study published in Diabetologia showing that short walks after meals reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes significantly more than a single longer walk taken at another time of day. Second, reduce refined carbohydrates at dinner specifically, because the overnight glucose curve is heavily influenced by what you eat in the evening. Third, prioritize sleep duration and quality, because a single night of poor sleep measurably impairs insulin sensitivity the following day. These 3 things cost you nothing and require no prescription. Step 5. If your numbers come back in the prediabetes range, please do not treat that as a non-event. Let me be really honest here. Prediabetes is not a warning that diabetes might happen someday. It is evidence that the damage is already underway, but it is also the single best window for reversing course completely. The Diabetes Prevention Program, a landmark trial involving over 3,000 adults, showed that structured lifestyle changes reduce the progression from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes by 58%. That is more effective than the first-line medication. You have enormous leverage at this stage. Step 6. Talk to your primary care doctor and bring your symptom log. I know it can feel like you're overreacting by showing up with a list. You are not. You are doing exactly what a good patient should do. The more specific and detailed your observations, the faster your doctor can help you connect the dots. Now let me zoom out for a moment, because I want to leave you with something bigger than a checklist. Modern medicine is extraordinary at saving lives in a crisis. I know that firsthand every single day. But the system is genuinely not built to catch the slow, quiet damage that builds over years before it becomes an emergency. Blood sugar dysregulation is one of the clearest examples of this. It can be silently progressing for a decade, showing up in your sleep, in your feet, in your morning mood, in your bathroom visits at 2 in the morning, and nobody connects those dots until the day the numbers are impossible to ignore. What I really want you to take away from this is that your body is not random. It is communicating with you constantly, and these nighttime signs are not just inconveniences to manage with earplugs or more water by the bed. They are data. They are your biology asking for attention before the situation becomes something I have to manage in an emergency room. The beautifully simple truth is that most of what determines your long-term metabolic health comes down to decisions you make every day, most of which don't require a prescription, a specialist, or an expensive intervention. They require attention, a bit of knowledge, and the willingness to take action before a crisis forces your hand. That's exactly why this channel exists. If this video helped you see something you hadn't connected before, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit the like button, it genuinely helps more people find this content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a great time. I put out new videos every week covering exactly this kind of practical, evidence-based health information, the stuff that actually changes outcomes. Take care of yourself. I mean that. Because the version of you that stays out of the ER is the goal every single time.